Working right now cutting the slats and strips for the floor in the master bath head, or the master head, the master stateroom and all that. And there's a strip in there, so it's, you know, just a classic, you know, strip floor out of actual wood using sepele and birch to create the contrast run. And you saw, you know, I mean, you can see on the video that I'm cutting these strips. I will tell you that injuries in carpentry are common. You know, it's not a safe sport by any stretch of the imagination, but I had an incident last night when I was cutting these strips. I had already finished, you know, 2 big bundles, which are right over there, and Gina was here, and, you know, I'd just been talking to her, and I put my earbuds back in and was just getting ready to cut a new strip, and started the cut, and everything was fine. And you'll notice when I'm cutting, see if I can get this thing set so you can see, you know, as I'm cutting, you'll see me put my hand up like this and push it through the saw. This is taking the place of a feather board, so it's pushing the workpiece up against the fence and it's holding it down. You know, a lot is said about table saw safety because it's, you know, the machine's pretty unforgiving. Like I tell Gina, it doesn't have a memory or a conscience. It doesn't really care what you think or, you know, how often it hurts you. It's just going to continue to do it every time. And there's some things that you can do. One of the things that I do is when I'm running a piece, say like this, I run the blade up till it just breaks the surface of the material. So if I should ever run afoul of the blade, the cut is not going to be that deep. And I've had that happen to me before when I'm cutting dados, which are, you know, similar to this, and you'll be pushing a piece of work through like that. I had a elevation lock that was broken on a table saw that I had many years ago, and the vibration from the saw occasionally would allow the blade to rise up. And I think, in fact, that's probably the last time I've been cut on a table saw, was pushing it through, and I started to feel it burn and pulled my hand up and had just the lightest score across my palm. So that was I got lucky moment. Last night I'm running a piece, and again I'm running through the blade like this, and occasionally my hand will stick and it'll scoot forward and then I'll pull it back. And I try to be very mindful of where my hand is in relation to this throat plate, because the throat plate is we call it the danger zone. You know, all these tools, you know, like this on this saw, and you know, most things that have a rotating blade, you know, have some sort of a throat plate. And I always taught my apprentices, and consequently Gina, that as long as you keep your finger, you know, because she's terrified of the table saw, she will not use it. And I don't blame her. If you're afraid of a tool, you probably shouldn't use it. She will use the chop saw because, of course, it's easier to control the stock and keep your hands well away from the blade. You know, and it's got a dropping blade guard on it too that keeps the blade mostly covered while you're cutting, but it'll still get a hold of a piece of material and whip it out of there and hit you. But anyway, you know, she's afraid of the table saw, and I get why. Again, it's not a safe piece of machinery, but, you know, as I was saying, if your hands are not over the throat plate or near it, then it's impossible for the saw to cut you. It just can't get to you, right? So you just have to be mindful of what you're doing. Well, I was pushing through the blade last night, and my hand must have caught on the wood and drifted forward just a little bit. And I keep my hand when I'm doing this. And again, this is experience. I would not suggest anybody else be doing this, but this is experience. So effectively the piece is like that, and then the cutoff piece is like this that you're going through, and I'm holding my hand like this and pushing in and letting the material slip. But again, sometimes your hand will grab and you'll drift forward. Well, I keep my hand pretty close to the blade. I'm actually putting pressure on the outside of the blade or guiding out here or just in front of the blade, really just in front of the leading edge of the blade. So that kind of looks like this, right? And it'll drift just a little bit up, and then I'll pull my hand back. Well, last night I just was not focused. The bottom line is as I've taught apprentices, and sorry, I'm trying to get this display to come back on so I can see them. Anyway, as I've taught apprentices, taught soldiers over the years, taught students in other venues, the one thing that'll get you killed or injured or get somebody else killed or injured is complacency. We do things. I've been a cabinet maker effectively for 35 years, and you get comfortable with the tools. One of the reasons I don't use a feather board, which I'm sure will come up in the comments, why don't you use a feather board? Well, I use a push stick because obviously I don't want to run my fingers that close to the blade. Even when it's remotely close, I'll use the push stick, but I don't use a feather board because I find them to be dangerous. These tools will tell you what they're doing, how they feel, how the cut's going. They'll tell you what you need to know if you listen, pay attention, hear the pitch changes, feel the vibration changes in your hands, feel the resistance of the piece when you're pushing it through the blade. You have got to use more senses than just visual when you're working with a piece of machinery. And I find that using my hand rather than a fingerboard, number one, gives me a tactile sense of what's going on that I don't get if I was running it through a feather board. And number two, I have seen feather boards many times. A piece of stock gets away from somebody, or the feather board itself shifts and it'll jam a piece up against the blade, which is a dangerous situation. That blade is spinning very, very fast. I'm not going to get into the math on it. It just goes very fast. And it has a certain amount of mass when you account for the blade and the arbor and the belt and the pulleys and all that. It's putting a lot of energy into that board. And if that energy transfers from cutting to pushing, it can really shoot a piece of wood out of there pretty good. I've had a couple of incidents over the years where I lost control of a piece of 1/4-inch plywood 25 years ago. I felt it go. I got my hands away from the blade and tried to spin out of the kill zone, and the piece popped up on top of the blade. It spun it like a frisbee and then threw it at me, and it caught me in the gut and cut my shirt and split my belly open. Not super deep, but enough to get my attention. And I lost control of a piece of 2x4, I don't know, probably 20 years ago, on a job site saw, which are dangerous inherently because they're unstable. But like these things, these weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds, so they don't tend to move. Job site saw weighs 30, 40 pounds, and they are meant to be portable. Well, that makes them unstable when you're pushing stock. And I lost control of one in an enclosed space like this with a roll-up door, and it threw that chunk of wood, which was probably only about 18 inches long, but it threw that chunk of wood past my face at the speed of Mach Jesus, close enough where it made a pop when it went past my ear, and it whistled up and hit the door, and it hit it so hard that it left a 2x4 shaped tattoo in that door about 1/4 inch deep. And it was probably 28 gauge steel, so it was a pretty heavy door. And that was probably a good 20, 25 feet away from where I was standing. So if it had hit me in the face, bad things would have happened. But anyway, I guess the point in this is, like old Norm Abrams used to say, safety, safety, safety. Most important things are these, safety glasses. Well, I don't wear safety glasses because I have eyeglasses on, and quite frankly, I don't like the ones that curve over your face because I've had tons of stuff that ricochets up and hits that and ends up down in my eyes. These are a polycarbonate lens, so they're impact resistant. I would definitely recommend you wear something, especially with a table saw. If you're cutting narrow strips, it will throw little chunks of wood back at your eyes pretty hard. But the most important safety tool you have is not safety glasses, it's your brain. You need to be thinking about, I've been doing this again for 35 years, and when I go to make a cut, I'm methodical in how I do it, and I'm methodical in my focus. The exception to that is, like anybody else, it's the end of the day, I'm getting tired, I've ignored my mental note that says, hey, you're getting tired, you probably ought to knock off for the night. And I've gone to push a little bit further because I really wanted to finish cutting these pieces last night and get those bundled up so I could just go straight to the boat today. Well, I didn't listen to it. And like I've told, especially my soldiers, you know, you have a spidey sense. If that little voice in your head says, hey, that's probably a bad idea, or you get this little creeping feeling in the back of your neck, a little tingle, stop whatever the hell you're doing and reevaluate, because my body is covered in scars, and every one of those scars has a story, and every one of them starts out with, yeah, I kind of saw that might be a thing, and I ignored it for a split second, and the universe said, okay, hold my beer, let me show you something. So you only get one of those. This last night actually caught me completely off guard, which tells me that I was not as focused on what I should have been doing as I should have been. So it's very rare that something truly surprises me that a tool does, but that tells me that my brain was drifting and I should have not been running the tool. So let that be a lesson to you. Thankfully, I got, I cut my thumb. I cut the tip of my thumb right here, right across here, as I was pushing the piece through like this, and I just ran the tip of my thumb through. Sorry if the camera angles, there we go, the display wouldn't turn back on, so I couldn't see what I was aiming at, but just lost focus for a second. And thankfully, again, because I only advanced that blade up just till it breaks the surface of the wood, comes up maybe 1/8 of an inch, what I got was 1/8 of an inch cut in my thumb, but it plowed out 1/8 of an inch by 1/8 of an inch through the tip of my thumb and my thumbnail. And that saw didn't hesitate for a second. Ate right through it, no problem. And it'll go through bone, tendon, ligament, doesn't matter. Does not hesitate. Yeah. So, as I tell the people that I work with frequently, as I used to tell my soldiers, 2 things. Keep your head out of your ass and keep it tightly wired to your shoulders. If one of the 2 of those things is not actively in play, then you are making a mistake. And that mistake, you may get away with it, you may not. But just be safe. These tools are no joke. I tell Gina all the time, these tools are not a joke. These are not toys. It's not a game. You only get one chance not to cut an appendage off. And you know what? 35 years, and all my fingers are intact and mostly work like they're supposed to. Mostly. So be mindful of the fact that this is not a game. These things will eat you alive if they get a chance, and they do it with absolute impunity. They could care less. So anyway, that's your PSA for today. My childhood hero Norm Abrams should be proud. Use your brains, kids. If you're not feeling up to it, if you're tired, you're sick, it's been a long day, you're aggravated about something, just do it another time, because it only takes a split second of losing focus and you'll run your thumb right through the damn table saw like I did. I was not, it hurt, I'm not gonna lie, it hurt, more like a burn than like a cut. But I immediately shook my hand off to fling the blood off of it to see how bad it was. I had my push stick in my hand like this. I came around the side of the saw, realized the saw was still on, had my push stick in my hand, reached back and hit the stop plate and broke it like a dumbass. Not because I was in a hurry, but because I was pissed off and I swung the push stick too hard and broke the damn stop plate on the saw. So I had to fix that on top of everything last night. But again, it wasn't so bad for me because I've got, God, I'd hate to even count them. It's probably 60 or more scars on my body. I've kind of lived my life full throttle, which is one of the reasons we're trying to retire early and go enjoy life, because I don't expect to live to be 100. But yeah, it impacted Gina pretty bad. She got, noticeably sick and was shaky and scared to death and freaking out. And I'm the medic in the family, so I was like, it's fine. I just need to get the bleeding to stop, and then we'll figure out what we got. There was nothing to stitch because, it's a chunk missing. It cut a groove in my finger, so there was nothing to pull together, but it just is going to have to heal. So anyway, that's my public service announcement for today. I'm working on getting these finished up, and then I have to make one more of that angled trim that I did before this piece for the valance in the bathroom. I have two pieces left on the boat, of course, that are 60 inches long. The piece I need is 63 and a half. And the temptation, I'm telling you, is to just miter a piece together and put it up there, and it's just not worth it. We have the wood on the rack. It's just, that's a cheat, and it's not worth the bullshit that's going to come along with, half-assing it. So anyway, that's my little rant, and I guess we'll get back to the regularly scheduled program.